Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for attending our Lunch and Learn program. We have an excellent team of special guest speakers today. Today's presenters are Barb Stanton, Emily Coler Hanson, Sally Tobin, and Will Pearson. They are a team of therapists who work for the Ann Carlson Center, and they all work with individuals on the autism spectrum. The topic that they are covering today is preparing for the holidays. To set the mood and kick off the topic, I will share a brief holiday memory of my own. I used to spend Christmas each year with my grandparents' house in Bagley, Minnesota. I was 7 years old in this memory, and I kept hearing about a Christmas fireplace. I had only seen fireplaces on television, so my grandma turned it on. It was a space heater shaped like a fireplace, and also had a rotating fire-colored tube which was behind a black grate that only revealed certain sections of the tube at any given time, creating the illusion of an active fire. These are digital today, but this one was mechanical. It was something incredibly simple, but this space heater brought something extra magical to my Christmas experience that year. With that, and without further ado, please help me give a warm welcome to Barb Stanton, Emily Coler Hanson, Sally Tobin, and Will Pearson.
That sounds like we're actually people.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you for the introduction. And I love that you brought that up, because one of the things as we talk about holidays, my number one suggestion for anyone is check in with your Ask Me and ask them, what is it that makes the holiday special to you? Because my guess is, if I were thinking I want to plan something for John, it would not have been rotating, mechanical fireplace. That wouldn't have come to mind. So I love that you recognize that as one of your favorite holiday memories, because my mom to this day still tells stories about the time she asked my siblings and I what we wanted to do for Christmas. And we all said, remember that time that we watched Charlie Brown Christmas and we ate popcorn and drank Kool-Aid? And my mom was floored, because she goes, that was the night I was totally done and I wasn't cooking dinner, and I set you all in front of the TV and Whitney spilled the popcorn and we didn't have a lot of money, so this is what we were doing. And it was her idea of just throwing in the towel, but it was a favorite thing. And so we still joke about we need Kool-Aid at Christmas, even though none of us drink that anymore. One thing I do want to say up front, we do have some handouts that if you want to grab them on your way out. One is just a summary of what we're talking about today, and the other one is a flyer. Ann Carlson is hosting a sensory-friendly Santa this year. So, and this is open to RRVAN families, Ann Carlson families, any child who would have a difficult time going to Santa at the mall or somewhere else. This would be the place we would love to have you. They are welcome to bring siblings, come as a family. There are no age requirements or limitations. If you're an older child who still wants to come and do that, you're welcome to do that. Our goal is to not have kids waiting in line. We'll have activities that they can do. They will meet with Santa with their family in a room by themselves, and it will be quiet. We've got light filters we'll put up and try and make it a nice experience. So if you're interested, please let us know. We just want to make sure we have enough holiday supplies and trinkets that kids will get to take home. First one is talking about time, because we wanted to look at all of the different ways that things are impacted during the holidays. If we could do the first slide, please. Perfect. Oh, so not everybody loves the holidays, right?
No.
Not everybody does. I know lots of different ways to count down. I love Barb's.
This is my slide.
This is Barb's zombie countdown to Christmas calendar. The next one is a little bit different. So a different activity that we can do.
Countdown to Christmas.
Yeah, it's a little different. Christmas at my house doesn't have zombies.
Very different than at my house.
But if you go to the next slide, some of the challenges with time during the holidays is there's lots of changes in schedule, changes in routine. There's lots of unstructured time. We find ourselves doing more waiting, especially when it's things that we're excited about. When are we going to grandma's? When are we doing this? I have a toddler, and his response when we're doing something is he will ask right now or soon, and it doesn't give you a big window to address what's happening. Unanticipated events come up that even if we weren't waiting for it, oh my gosh, now these people stopped by, the neighbors did to drop off cookies, and we were getting ready to go, or we were going to do something else. And I think waiting is really hard because it's so vague, and what do we do while we wait, and how do we know when waiting is done? So things we can do about it. If we
Hang
move
on, because I want to talk a little bit about the time changes that happen at schools too. And a lot of times we are going to see some more challenges for kids during the holiday time at schools. So keep in mind that you need to check in with school teachers to find out what kinds of changes, because a lot of times it gets a little chaotic and unstructured. And as they do more things that are out of routine and out of schedule at school, again, we might see kids who are more stressed out at school might also look more stressed out at home too. So sometimes kids don't always care about some of the things that happen at school, and talk to them about how important is this, prep them for it. So it's not just at home, but also at school that we worry about those changes in routine and unstructured time.
So things we can do about it. Using a countdown device, whether it's an ornament, a calendar, old school paper chains, so that how do we mark the days and passing to what it is. But I would also look at what are you counting down to. It's not always to Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. Maybe it's to that favorite activity, or maybe it's to the visit to Santa, or the things that we're looking forward to. I had one family that does a paper chain, and then they label each chain with the date on it, and then write down what special thing is on that day. So we know it's 10 days till we do Christmas at this grandma's house, but then it's 8 days until we do Christmas at the other grandma's house. And so trying to differentiate those different activities. Visual schedules are helpful. Informing your spectrum folks of changes coming up in it with as much advance as possible, and having those reminders and preparation in advance of, okay, when we go here, here's what we're going to do, here's who we'll see. Pull out those family photo albums, because sometimes these are people we only see once a year, and we don't always remember them, especially as kids.
Right. Yeah, and social, when we talk about prepping, we're talking about pre-teaching, social stories, or whatever interventions have been successful in the past, to use those consistently.
Can I interject?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My daughter only saw relatives infrequently, and she could not remember who they were and how they fit into the family. So we created a family tree.
Beautiful.
So that she could also reference back to, oh, that one belongs to that one, and
Yeah.
that's how we're related.
Right.
That's a great idea. Love it.
So our next one is lights. And again, we have to remember that some of the folks we're talking about can be sensory seeking, and some folks can be sensory avoiding. So there are some who are going to really love the lights, the more lights the better, and there are going to be some who don't want to have the extra lighting at all. So taking a look at, and there are multiple different types of lights out there that you can use in your home. There are, the LED lights that tend to be a little brighter. There are the kind of the old-fashioned lights that tend to be a little bit more dull. There's the bright white. There's the regular white. There are different colors. So be sure to check in to make sure if you have somebody who struggles with some of those sensory issues having to do with a light, and also knowing that the addition of lights is a change. Just as when you take those lights down, it's changed, and it's going to become very difficult. So you sort of have that dual issue of the sensory piece as well as all the changes. Keep in mind too that a lot of times flashing.
Is people on the spectrum have seasonally affected disorders where they need the sad lights?
Yep, and that's a whole different kind of light that you'd be assessed by a professional, and you get a prescription for the specific kind of UVB light that you need to be able to have to get that. Also, sometimes adding vitamin D in this part of the country is really important, but I'd encourage people to work with their providers, their medical providers, mental health providers, to help identify some of those issues and get
right.
those
So as you have all the
interventions.
Christmas lights on and you see that maybe they're happier, then the lights go out. Now it's gloomy. You might want to say, hey, I got to have this checked.
And I absolutely, if you notice changes like that, absolutely it's worth checking those kinds of things out. I know kids who have, I actually have Christmas lights up all the time. I use them sort of over my archway because it's a great way to have some subtle lighting. So why not? I mean, who's to say that we can only have holiday lights up a certain time during the year? And you can, if folks really like lights, you can change them out for different seasons or different holidays too.
Can I add something in there as well?
Yes, please.
That
there are some Christmas lights that can be very good for sensory, and then some that would be avoiding, so it isn't an either or of a binary choice of
Correct.
on off. There are
Yeah.
some that will just cause sensory overload, and there are some that will actually lift my moods, and so they're
Right.
just check around with.
And a lot of the big stores will have samples, they'll have the lights up so you can see what they look like when they're lit. Thank you.
Would red lights be more of a turn off and blue lights be more, but it could be back and forth depending on
Depends on the person.
individual?
Depends on how their brains are working and how they're processing that light. And some lights can trigger seizures too, like some flashing lights. So you need to be very cautious when you have folks who have those needs. Sorry, Matthew.
If it's actually strobe-ish, yeah. But for me, number one, I'm a seeker. Number two, the problem for me isn't that there's multiple things going on. It's the actual frequency of what or the people that are surrounding it.
Yeah.
Because if there's little kids that are hyper or screaming or X, Y, and Z, I will be like in a corner screaming. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. So actually, some of the things we already talked about are some of the responses about choosing the lighting together, taking the person to the store, let's select this and see what works okay. Include the kids when you're hanging up the lights so that they're a part of it and it's not a surprise like I come home from school someday and everything's lit up right away. And just be thoughtful. Be thoughtful. And I think the most important part of that is to include the person on the spectrum in that selection.
And I always harken back to National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where Clark Griswold asks son Rusty to hang up all those Christmas lights, and just making sure that we ask if that's something that's okay with them. If you think about it, if someone has a holiday tree that has pre-embedded LED lights, and that's something that might be a struggle for you when you're going to that home for the holidays, is that a conversation to have both with your ASPE and also with that family with whom you want to go to?
But clearly the picture with the lightsabers is always appropriate.
Absolutely.
Yes, we've got an addition.
Well, with how my family did it, like it was basically like if we were setting up the tree, it was a family event.
Sure.
It was all the kids. It was the parents. It was X, Y, and Z. So, like even though they didn't know I was on the spectrum at the time, but like it was just something my family did at that particular time of the season.
Yeah.
It may have been like when it actually became December or the day or two after Thanksgiving, but the actual time or the time didn't really matter. It was just that was something that we always did.
Right.
Looking at candles, sensory stuff like scents, is it too strong? Some people have like those house warmer candles in their home. They're made by Yankee Candle. Those are really overwhelming sometimes. So again, check in, see what's going to smell good, what's going to smell bad. Is that something that you want to include? The candles with flicking flames, depending on safety with that, making sure that you're being mindful of that. And if there's a child who likes fire, just think about that.
Emily freaked out with this photo of the little girl. with
Yeah,
the candles so
and
close.
it's kind of dark, but she's actually sitting in a bed, and I'm just waiting for her to burst into flame. It's hard for me to watch.
So if we go to the next one. So again, think about using those unscented candles, using flameless candles. Those are very popular and pretty, inexpensive and common nowadays. Candles out of reach, or just skipping them all together. And then moving on to religious services, I think.
So religious services can be a tricky one for some families to begin with, even just a regular practice. But then when we add the holidays into it, what might have typically been a struggle now has all of these changes within it. It may be out of routine. I certainly have some families that say, going on the regular is hard for us, so we only go on holidays. So then we now add something that's kind of different. There can also be a lot of sensory overload. It is crowded, it is hot, there is music, depending on your church. Sometimes there are different scents or incense things going on. And holiday programs and pageants are also a struggle. If, whether or not your child wants to participate. And I told Barb the story the other day. As a kid, I did not want to be in the Christmas pageant. My father worked at a church. This was a big deal. And one year, the only reason I was in it was because Mary got chicken pox and I got to be Mary. So so even if it's participating, in what way does your child want to participate? Are they a lead role kind of kid? Would they rather be in a choir? Could we just put on the cow costume and be in the back? Or what would be most helpful? How do we incorporate that in a way that they're comfortable with?
Yeah, and I think too, because one of these superpowers, of course, is complete honesty and asking questions all of the time. That's when a lot of questions come up, and I hear a lot of questions from kids this time of year of that difference in perspective, per se, with traditions and particularly religious questions that come up. And to, again, be honest, be upfront, be open to those kinds of questions happening. If you're going to be going to someone else's church, a family member, and it's different from their own, find out ahead of time what might be different in that particular service as opposed to the ones that they might be familiar with, so that you address those things up front, so you don't have that lone voice from the middle of the crowded church saying, we don't do it that way. So
If all else fails, have them be on tech.
yeah,
that's a great idea.
Like sound, etc., etc.
That's a great
They're
idea.
back and they're hidden.
That's a great idea.
But doing something, I think that brings up a good point about needing to be busy. That if you have a job to do and you can be active, and so if you are doing the religious service and you're not a part of it, bring something along that they can do. I think it's an unreasonable expectation to expect most kids to sit still and to listen and to participate when it's hot and crowded and they would rather be home.
Yeah.
That you do that, and it is okay to be sitting somewhere and be doing something that keeps your mind occupied and your hands occupied.
Even as an adult, I run into that.
Yeah.
I don't particularly want to be at a church service just because it's way too many people and it's so loud.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on
We
to,
good?
yes, please. Presents. Yeah, even looking at this, I get overwhelmed. So that's a lot of gifts. If we could move on to the next one. So the tricky part with presents, one is executive functioning. It's the waiting and knowing what to expect and being patient. If I see a gift on a tree, it's really hard if it's got my name on it to not shake it and want to know and ask over and over, when are we doing this? If there's a set time when your family opens gifts, make sure you let them know and then be able to stick to it. Even if dinner gets delayed, if the turkey's not done, we open presents after dinner. Try and be as specific as you can and then be able to stick with that. Some kids just need to know. I have a cousin who celebrates the holidays with us. He's in his 40s and he's on the spectrum, and he every year on Thanksgiving gives the family a very specific list of what he would like for Christmas. There's book titles and authors, specific items, links on websites. It is preferred if you only buy something from this list. He has a hard time if he opens something that's not on the list because he doesn't know what to do with it. So we kind of talk amongst ourselves and divide up who's getting what, and let him know that the list is taken care of, and then he's good. So it's kind of fun. I think the only thing we go off the list for are things for his cats, but then that's kind of the exception. So sometimes that need to know is really important. I have one family where they take their children Christmas shopping for their own gifts, so they know, and they do it, not long before Christmas, but so the waiting period is pretty short. They wrap them together, and they can choose what paper do you want on this one. We put them under the tree. So it takes the surprise out of it, but there's still the symbolic opening of gifts and participation with everybody else. But it takes a lot of that anxiety away of not knowing what's in there, especially if there's something we really want. And I've just been begging for this one toy all year, and I need to know if it's happening or not. It really has to be fun for that person. If it's not fun for them, that's not a gift. And so I think, initially when Cousin Shane kind of sent out this list, I went, what in the world? But this is what makes it fun for him, and that's how he is comfortable getting and receiving gifts, and that's what we do.
On the flip side, sometimes the waiting is hard.
It is.
And I already know I'm getting it, so why wouldn't you give it to me? Because that's not logical. So again, you have to know your child, and I actually had a crisis call from a parent because the child saw what he was getting for Christmas, and why won't you let me play with it? And had a full-on hellacious, multiple-hour, multiple-day meltdown. And I finally said, how much joy is there going to be when you give him this gift after you've gone through all of this? And they said, gave him the gift, everybody was happy, didn't matter, because at that point, what does it matter whether you get it on December 24th or December 15th?
Yeah.
So again, if you can wait, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't wait.
Might not be worth it.
And you can always wrap it again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just 5 minutes before.
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point.
Gift bags are great for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Just shove it back in.
And I think in terms of being mindful of sensory stuff as it pertains to the wrapping, make sure you have more than just one, if it's a family-based wrapping activity, more than one wrapping paper. Some of them
Both
are
ribbons.
embossed, some of them are shiny and slick, some of them are paper-like, and
Pick your favorite.
pick your
Yeah.
favorite, absolutely.
Matthew.
Well, for my family, due to one of my brothers actually being married, it's changed a little bit, but it's still more or less the same. Because it used to be go to church on the 24th, have a little bit of food after we get home, and then open gifts. But since my brother is now married, they do that stuff with the other family on the 24th, so it changed to the 25th, which, I mean, for me, myself, and I really couldn't care. But, I mean, some people might actually care.
Yeah, absolutely.
So-
Absolutely.
That does raise an interesting difficulty if you're looking at combining families, or you're looking at adding new people into the family that weren't there the year before, several years before. Because now you may have new routines and new people, and it's nice if you can lay as many of those things out beforehand as possible, what to expect.
Yeah, I think that's great. Could we do the next slide,
Okay.
please? So we're going to skip these just for time, but there's a really great Big Bang Theory clips on Sheldon Cooper and why he does not like presents, and so those are very fun to watch. Those are very fun to watch. But as we look at presents, sometimes it can be helpful to not put presents out until it is time. Never joke or tease about presents. The intent of giving gifts is to be generous and to be kind, that we want to do something to celebrate with anyone. So don't ever use gifts as a reward or consequence. If you kids don't behave, then there'll be no Christmas this year. I would take all of that off the table.
Absolutely.
Sometimes giving gifts ahead of time can be helpful. Allowing different schedules to open presents, or even just different space. Maybe we don't want to open them with the whole family. Maybe we do it separately. Script responses to receiving gifts. Sometimes you might get something that you just aren't thrilled about, but you still say thank you.
What?
Yeah.
3 of these!
Yeah, absolutely. I have a friend who got 17 crock pots at her wedding. I don't know what you do with 17 crock pots, but she said, I'm so glad we didn't do a gift opening because I didn't know what I would say after crock pot number 5. So social stories can be helpful. Redirecting obsessive behaviors. It can be hard with siblings if one gets the gift that I really wanted, or how do we negotiate that? And sometimes choosing your own gifts or creating that desired list can be really helpful.
I know when I was still in high school, I'm kind of forgetting the time frame, but it was open, I think it was like a week before. And we would open one gift per night, and then like the final blowout bash was on Christmas.
Sure.
So, which actually helped considering that I've got 2 brothers, and it got kind of like on Christmas morning, we would get up at 4 a.m.
Oh, I believe it. No, that's pretty good. Next.
And I think when it comes to gift giving too, these are great opportunities to help either reinforce or teach some social interactions and social perspectives, know what rules are about giving gifts to other kids at school, to teachers, to other people in their lives, because we want to make sure that the kids understand the idea and the thought behind giving someone a gift, and that, you know, sometimes making something and giving it as opposed to feeling like you need to buy something is really important too. Also a good time for some kids to do some volunteer work, and that the gift you give doesn't have to be tangible. Sometimes it can be your time, and then you give some of those opportunities to teach that beyond, you know, the present and the gift giving is there are other things that we can do socially that allow for some of that skill building.
All right, our next category is food.
It looks delicious.
It does look delicious, but I look at this plate and I go, Barb Stanton would never eat it because all the food is touching, and I would eat any of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
If we go next slide, please. I also want you to notice, so there's turkey all down the side, but it's 4 different ways. So just telling someone, oh, we're going to grandma's and we're having turkey, might not be the same information, because not everyone is going to do it the same way. And so just because I like this food the way mom does it, doesn't mean I like the way the food that grandma's going to do it, or whoever it may be. And so sometimes you might have to be really, really specific about what you're looking at. So food, smells, tastes, sounds, other people chewing. I've a couple of kids on my case who cannot handle other people chewing.
Chewing, slurping, smacking.
Yep.
And that's when some of those blurting things are going to come out.
Yep.
And I think even before the meal is even started, if you're dining at a big table, does an elder in the family or in the home that you're going to tend to ask for someone to say grace? I know growing up, oftentimes people would ask for the youngest people and kind of pick someone out and say, well, Will, why don't you say grace? And I would have no idea what to say. So it's like, Lord have mercy, really. So think about that.
That counts.
Yeah, it does,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So think about how that might go and how to prepare family and the home where you're going for the holidays. The sensory stuff for food is huge, I think.
It's very huge, and a lot of people do have, and not just folks on Spectrum, about food touching, and you know, you eat all of one thing at a time, rather, and mixing foods together is just unacceptable and gross. So needing to be able to do that. Looking at too much sugar too. I mean, if you are going to do sort of the sugar beyond, and again, there are some of us who can't do sugar and shouldn't, so are there alternatives available for people who can't, or sweet alternatives for kids that aren't going to sort of up that activity level, or the irritability level, or even the sleepy level for some of them.
You should actually see how much I have to deal with for that kind of jazz.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
I actually loved this plate that has all the separations and the little, you know, trucks and things for the utensils. I thought
That's
is
cute.
pretty cute, and I had not seen that before.
Well,
So
Put it on your Christmas list.
Yep, so if there are special kinds of utensils and things that kids are comfortable with, maybe using smaller plates, maybe using really big plates with separations. I loved your sister did like a muffin tin dinner.
Yeah.
Where they got to put different foods in the, you know, the different little muffin tins,
Yeah.
which I thought was a brilliant thing
Yeah.
to do,
Yep.
where they choose.
I know for me, myself, and I will literally go and pile stuff on top of each other. It's all going to the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then, you know, someone sitting next to you could be like, I can't believe you would
Yeah.
eat that. But you know what? It's your
Yeah.
plate to eat how you want, and so I think that's something that we
Yeah.
we can instill in other kids as well.
Or someone else's plate to go eat in another room,
Yeah.
or to eat early, or to, you know, do whatever it is that's comfortable, because you've got to weigh out everyone's enjoyment, and by everyone's enjoyment is not having someone who's uncomfortable or having a meltdown.
Yeah. And sometimes it means bringing your own dinner. And and maybe, you know, we recognize, yes, I know the family put a lot of time and effort into this, but if it is most fun for Will to just bring his own box dinner and he eats his ham sandwich while we eat whatever, that's fine.
Yeah.
If that's what makes Christmas great for you is to
Yeah.
eat your favorite thing.
And
then
I
you
also
do it.
wonder about like kids tables. Like if a child really wants to eat with parents, can we
Adults.
just be flexible and do that?
Yeah.
Just avoid the meltdown altogether.
And I'm a grown-up who would much prefer to sit at the kids' table. So I would be happy to trade
Yeah,
if
me
somebody
too.
wants to.
Me too.
Yes.
Okay, next one. This is a category I added this year.
Yeah. Elf on the shelf.
I love this. I was just so delighted to find that. You can go to the next one. So the elf on the shelf has become a really big deal,
And a
and
very creepy elf.
I think it's
It's very
creepy.
creepy.
And I think we need to talk to kids about whether or not they think it's creepy.
My
For
daughter
kids.
loves it.
And some
Fabulous. And if I had an elf
Figure.
tied up with stormtroopers around it, I'm all in.
Right.
But for some kids, it is scary. And for kids with anxiety, it can really up the anxiety about, am I really, I mean, even in this age of, am I really being taped? Is somebody really watching me? What's really going on here? And just be very mindful of sometimes things that other people think are really cute may not be so cute.
Oh yeah, our rules are totally different. Like,
Yeah.
her name is Kate, but she's never allowed in the bathroom. Because who would want to have Kate watch them go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
Like, there's all
Yeah.
sorts of
Yeah.
rules.
So Kate's got a good backstory.
Kate's got a
Yeah.
lot of backstory, and she doesn't move very much.
Yeah.
She's
I think
just
that's
sort
great.
of hanging out, and
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
And
Kate
people
has
do
a
a lot of
dog.
creepy stuff with the little
Yeah.
elves.
yeah, there's not a lot of
Yeah.
Kates.
And
So-
it can also make
Oh yeah, she has a Saint Bernard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
cute.
Yes.
I would also argue elf on the shelf.
You got a whole tradition with that one. huh?
Yeah, it can make a ton of work for parents. So unless it's a tradition your kid is excited about, don't feel pressured to have to do all these extra things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also have heard that some of the elves on the shelves come with a DVD, and some kids find that it's almost guilt tripping.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so,
Yeah.
so the video might not be something that you would want to show to the kids because of
Yeah.
just the nature of how the whole elf on the shelf works. So just be
So-
aware of that too.
Just say no.
If
The
you
elf
want
on the
to.
shelf. Next slide. And we've talked a lot about
Families and
families,
relatives.
and the slide is, relatives and other interlopers. Because a lot of times for kids, when people are coming into the home, it feels like an interloper. Especially if you have to share your bedroom or your toys or things that you might not be very comfortable or flexible in doing. So like I said,
Next slide, please.
yeah, just the crowds touching. In this day and age, make sure kids are comfortable, and we tell kids all the time, don't let strangers touch you or hug you. Yet we let all kinds of relatives that they've maybe never seen before or see once a year come in and hug them and touch them. No. If it's not okay on a daily basis, it's not okay at the holidays. Let relatives and people know ahead of time your expectations for coming into your home. Because it's the child's home or the adult on the spectrum or whomever, it is their home as well.
If I have like a cousin come over that I have not seen in a long time, I become very reserved
Yep.
until I kind of warm up again to it because of just the time that has passed and how long it's been since. So there's also that.
And I just want to say quickly, what I hear back from a lot of parents is a lot of judgment by others about your parenting. You're being indulgent, you're being, you're giving in too much. Trust your judgment as a parent. You know your child, you know what's best. Go with those instincts and trust yourself, and don't let other people get inside your head or your heart and try to change what you know is the right thing to do.
And I think on the receiving end, I would much rather get a genuine hug from somebody who wants to hug me than have someone feel forced and uncomfortable to hug me. And I think if you explain sometimes that way to grandparents or relatives and just say, when we hug, we want it to be genuine, and we're teaching choice and we're teaching body safety. So if you get a hug, that's great. If not, we do handshakes, high fives, or maybe even a wave. There's lots of other ways that we can teach greetings. Travel. I know we've got one whole presentation on travel because travel can be really, really tricky. I love the dad with the triplets who put the big cardboard in between each of them so they had their own space. Again, a lot of sensory issues and a lot of changes that come into play, even just anticipating travel. I know Barb and I have traveled multiple times together. I'm not on the spectrum, but I start getting anxious 3 days before we go. And everyone can be on edge, and then throw bad weather into that too, really can make it tricky and as well. And also when you travel, decide where are people more comfortable. Is it at the relative's house or is it at a hotel? And again, I know this is a spot where sometimes feelings can be hurt, but it's also a holiday for everybody, and that we enjoy the holiday better when people aren't melting down and everybody gets good sleep, and that we have a little bit of privacy, or that we have some downtime and quiet time. I have some families that when they go to a hotel ask for an extra change of sheets, because then you can quickly make any other furniture in your hotel room into a fort, so that we now have our private, quiet spaces. That everybody just needs time to calm down, because the holidays are much more enjoyable when we are all feeling our best and can go and enjoy it together.
Another point.
Yes, please.
I find that travel is rather stressful for me, because I would be pulled away from a comfort routine that I would be very used to at home. But it does help a little bit to bring something that brings you comfort. A book, a calming activity that you would usually use in your own home routine, along with you. That can help a little bit.
Yep. Or even favorite pillows, if that's
Yeah.
what you sleep with. My son's got a favorite bear, so we own 8 of them. However many, there's a pile. But if you have those favorite go-tos, make sure you're bringing them, and bring a spare.
And we're getting close to time, so
We
we
are.
should kind of keep
Zooming along.
moving on here.
Can I say one thing before we?
Please do.
Yeah.
Well, because I actually travel a lot. Either by train or plane, usually. But for me, it's not specifically about the spectrum stuff. Because say you're going to an airport, it's always the same. So, but the one I have is since I'm a diabetic with pump, that gets a little more tricky. So, I mean, I go early, I get checked in early, I get through the gate early, and just kind of hang out.
Yep.
And I actually bring stuff to, excuse the phrasing here, but kill time.
Yeah.
Like I'll bring my laptop and wireless headset and either game or listen to music until the thing actually starts, or until boarding actually starts. So.
Yeah, and check with TSA.com if you are traveling by air, because they will have they will let you know, because there are things that you can do if you're traveling with a child on the spectrum, that you can bring documentation of that, and you can expedite some of the processes. And if you're an adult on the spectrum and sometimes get really anxious and you don't want to alert security or TSA that there might be something wrong, there are things you can go and check out at TSA, and they'll have different ideas and things for you to be able to do. The FBI also has a list of things that you can do that are going to help you get through some of those areas that people might be suspicious. If you're acting particularly anxious, or you're not making eye contact, or you're not doing the things that we think are okay, but might raise some suspicion.
Well,
so
since I've actually done it multiple times, like it's kind of a routine now.
Yeah.
you're used to it.
You've got the
Since-
experience.
Like for Fargo Airport, it has that big turnstile thing that you go into. Like I can't go in that, but I can basically say, well, I need to be hand checked, and they're like, go for it.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Shopping.
Just don't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go through this one quickly, and you can read some of the other things, but just don't do it.
Yeah. And have your kids shop online with you.
Yeah.
A lot of fun in that. Yeah.
Okay.
So I know our last couple of slides just kind of have a summary and guidelines, and a lot of those are on the handout as well. But I think ultimately, if you ask your loved one who's on the spectrum, what is it that makes the holiday special to you, and we focus on that and we plan around that, we can help them have those same wonderful experiences and memories without feeling the pressure of having to do all of the other things. Because if baking 10 dozen different kinds of cookies isn't fun to you, you don't really have to do it. And give yourselves the permission to choose what you'd like to do and how you want to spend your time. Because I think it's very easy to get overloaded and add a lot, and you really don't need to.
I mean, bottom line, it's about respect.
Yeah.
It's about respecting people who may have different perceptions, different needs, different ideas, and just being respectful and kind.
And having fun.
And having fun.
Yep.
We forget about that sometimes.
Thank you, folks, for having us.
Questions? You don't need to apply. We didn't finish the whole PowerPoint, so.
So you don't get the.
We've lost our privilege.
You don't get your.
But any questions from anybody?
You were talking earlier about sugar possibly being a problem. I also know that some people get migraine headaches from sugar as well.
Correct.
So if someone's starting to get a migraine headache and you don't know why, just look into what you're eating.
And here's a hint. You don't need to use all the sugar that they tell you to in the recipe. It tastes just the same and turns out just as well with a lot less sugar in it.
And adults can get migraine headaches from sugar too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Drink water.
Oh,
Yeah,
and that's
yes.
good idea. Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Why I actually mentioned the dosing part, like say I'm just kind of wander eating, I mean, that can add up real fast, so.
But I think that's a good point too, that if somebody's a grazer, they need to graze. Don't say, let's wait for the big meal if somebody's gonna be crabby and have a headache. Well, again,
Thank you very much for having us.
Yep.
Thank you.
Now I will lead an applause. I introduced you, I concluded you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, what a great post. I love it. Love it.